Welcome back. Yemen has been in the headlines again this week, quite a lot, after an audacious attempted terrorist attack. Last Friday, 2 bombs hidden in printer cartridges were, as you probably read, intercepted on US cargo planes. The packages had been sent from the Yemeni capital of Sanaa and are believed to be the work of al-Qaeda's Arabian branch, as it were. Following on from the failed bombing of a Detroit-bound airliner last Christmas, there is growing concern that Yemen, the poorest country in the Arab world, is becoming a haven for militants, in particular al-Qaeda. And I'm joined now from Sanaa by a leading Yemeni analyst, Faris al-Sanabani. And Faris, I heard from someone today that the best way of describing you and the power you have is that you are a sort of Yemeni Rupert Murdoch.
No, I'd love to be that, but it's not true. However, we're working at it.
And what's the situation now in terms of the situation a week after these bomb letters and so on? Is there fear in Sanaa, or is there confidence, or is the poverty such that there's nothing that's going to be done?
Okay, if we look at the government and the security apparatus, they're busy as ever. They're trying to find links and going deep, trying to trace and find out who did this. And also they're looking at ways to improve the security apparatus, to improve the equipment that they have at the airport, to do hand search and rely on the human aspect of it rather than only on the equipment. Now, as far as people, it's business as usual. The restaurants are crowded. People are eating and walking around and doing their own things. As far as international people and as far as business and tourism, it's almost dead. The country has been massacred. No investors are coming in. Tourists are very, very few, and a lot of embassies are not allowing their people to come to the country. The only foreigners we see nowadays is a lot of journalists, international journalists.
And security men, no doubt, as well. Yes, absolutely. Foreign journalists and so on. And in terms of what's happened with al-Qaeda, when did al-Qaeda, as it were, didn't invade Yemen, but when did it become a presence in Yemen with all the problems that went with it?
Yeah. Al-Qaeda in Yemen has been like a sort of a bubble. Every once in a while they'll pop. In the a few years back, they popped with the Col bombing. That's when they first became public in the Republic of Yemen. But it's been a battle back and forth between the government and them. Sometimes they're dealing with them with dialogues, with head-on confrontations, and confiscation of equipment and intelligence and that kind of thing. So it's not a steady thing. They disappear for a while and they come and then they come back again. They become more active when we have a foreign element that comes in, like al-Asiri, who just popped out from Saudi Arabia. He brought him back in the map.
And have there been sort of, they say, for instance, the US, the papers in the States say the US has been waging a sort of secret war in Yemen for some years. Is that true?
Yemen is a very, very complicated country. It is, you have to be in the country and you have to be deep in the root to understand. It's not as easy and as simple as a lot might think. I think the American interference in Yemen is limited to the training and the equipment and the advice that they give every once in a while. And that's how the Yemeni people like it, and that's how the government has announced that they will accept only that.
Right, and so that the attitude to al-Qaeda in Yemen is what? That there are supporters of al-Qaeda, obviously, and vigorous opponents of al-Qaeda. How do they divide up people? Do 50% support al-Qaeda and 50% oppose it, or what?
Absolutely not. Al-Qaeda is not welcomed. It's hated. We understand that it's devastation for all. But we have to understand that on the other hand, when there is no jobs and there is no schools and the challenges are very heavy, you have a lot of desperate people. And desperate people sometimes recruited without even them knowing, or become some sort of sympathizers, or they get closer to their ideology out of desperation, not out of love what they do or out of interest in devastation and disaster. The challenge that we have in the country, it pushes people, it pushes a few people in that direction because of desperation. But overall, the president, the prime minister, and the people of Yemen and the scholars of the country have denounced al-Qaeda and have made it loud and clear. Al-Qaeda is not welcome, and we don't want them in our country.
And in fact, therefore, you're saying that these bombs that were, and the way that they were sent to other parts of the world, those bombs may have come from a country called the Yemen, but absolutely not from the Yemen government in any shape or form.
Absolutely, it doesn't. You don't shoot yourself in the foot and in the head. Such thing is like shooting yourself in the head. It's impossible. We know, and as the information is becoming clear, that al-Asiri is the Saudi national who is an expert on a new technology that could not be detected in Yemen or in other countries. Fortunately, there was a tip from Kingdom of Saudi Arabia about this package. Otherwise, it would have been devastation. They penetrated the systems of a number of countries, not just Yemen. Yemen, with their limited resources, was penetrated, but also other countries as well.
And at the moment, you are in absentia. You are trying the alleged head of al-Qaeda in the Yemen. That trial is going to take place in his absence unless you can find him, yes?
That is correct.
And so do you think you'll find him?
There is efforts to track him down, whether it's by the Yemeni government or even by some of the tribes who are cooperating with the government. And we've seen yesterday al-Qaeda just made an announcement threatening and warning the tribes from cooperating with the government in hunting him down. The issue here that has to be very clear, in which you raised, it's absolutely not. The government is not with al-Qaeda, is not supportive with al-Qaeda. The people are not supportive of al-Qaeda. We are damaged most by al-Qaeda. When a bombing happens, when a threat happens, the hotels are empty. The Yemenis are prevented from traveling to other countries. Even those who are wealthy and educated, and our kids cannot go to school overseas for higher education, transfer of information, jobs. Companies who want to come and invest in Yemen are not encouraged to come to the country. So who's damaged most by such a thing? Is Yemen and Yemenis and the Yemeni government. Make no mistake, no one from Yemen wants them. We want prosperity, we want education, we want life, not death.
That is a very clear statement. Thank you very much for that, Faris. We understand what you're saying there very clearly. Thank you very much for being with us, and we hope we'll talk again in the near future.
Thank you, David. Pleasure.
So now, a vital question. What's the next big idea? Where will the internet go next? Of course, we don't know, but one man may have quite a few clues on this matter. Stephen Johnson, the writer who told us that watching The West Wing or playing card games makes us clever, has turned his attention to the genesis of good ideas. Where do they come from, and how are they made? And Stephen Johnson is with us right now. Welcome. Welcome, Stephen.
Thank you, Tim. Good to be back.
And let's start with the question you framed on the front of the book. Where do good ideas come from? You say more corporate, not in the sense of businesses, but in the sense of groups of people rather than individuals.
Yeah, we have this kind of romantic idea of the lone genius having the eureka moment. And what I found in the research for this book is that it's almost never the case that it happens like that, that ideas are much more likely to form in networks, particularly in networks where you have lots of different kind of interests and hobbies and passions and different fields of expertise that come together and collide in surprising new ways. Because that gives people the opportunity to kind of borrow some technique from another discipline or some kind of metaphor of thinking about a problem from a certain way and come up with a new solution that they hadn't thought of before.
You have a chronology of key innovations from 1400 to 2000, starting with the printing press and double entry accounting and so on and through that. Which of all these impresses you the most? There's a lot here covering 600 years. What is the invention that to you is the most exciting, the most seminal?
Well, the one that I find the most interesting and I'm kind of the most moved by is an invention that failed, really, which is that Charles Babbage invented effectively the programmable computer in 1840 in Victorian England. And he was so far ahead of his time that he was trying to invent a digital age technology with effectively steam technology, with industrial age technology. And while he was able to see so far ahead of pretty much everyone around him, he was so far ahead that, in fact, the idea kind of died off, and a lot of his discoveries had to be kind of separately rediscovered 70 years later when people actually started to build computers.
And that's also in the same situation with people, that people can, it's all okay if, in light of what you're just saying, it's okay to be 2 steps ahead. You're a genius.
Yeah.
But if you're 10 steps ahead,
exactly.
you're nothing, because no one can understand what you're saying or doing.
There was another kind of rival version of the World Wide Web envisioned by this brilliant guy named Ted Nelson. When Tim Berners-Lee was creating the web, there was this other hypertext architecture, and he just wanted to have this really radical, visionary platform that would have had to have been entirely built from scratch. And Berners-Lee, who invented the web, actually just modified a bunch of kind of existing systems that were out there and took small steps. And his was the one that won out because he was less ambitious.
And Mr. Berners-Lee, but he didn't copyright the web either.
That's right. And that the power of a platform that
that's what he must do.
I know,
every morning he wakes up, looks in the mirror and goes.
But if he had, and if you had to ask his permission or his company's permission every time you wanted to build something on the World Wide Web, we wouldn't have the web that we know today. It's because it was an open platform that it became, even though nobody owns it, it nonetheless generated huge amounts of wealth and all these amazing for-profit companies, but it itself belongs to everyone.
What's the next great idea, or by definition is a great idea so unpredictable you couldn't possibly know what it was going to be?
I'm really fascinated by location, geographic location. We now have these little devices that know exactly where we are because they've got GPS, and you can pull out your phone and say, okay, show me everything that's being said about every single restaurant within 10 minutes of where I'm standing on this street corner. So when you combine the connectivity of the web with geographic information, the real world, not just sitting in front of a screen, but actually walking around a city and connecting to people, there's a whole universe of things we haven't yet figured out in that, and I think that's going to be really exciting to watch.
And as someone said in the paper the other day, the answer to the question, what was the greatest thing before sliced bread? Which I thought was a good one. It's great to have you with us.
Thank you.
Look forward to hearing about the next one. Thank you for the good ideas we heard about today.
Thank you very much.
That was Stephen with us there. After the break, the man who recorded the biggest best-selling album of the past decade. Join me and the tuneful tones of James Blunt after this break.